Thanks for tuning in to the Replatform podcast, sponsored by Attract Hypersonics and hosted by me, James Gedd and Paul Rogers. A warm welcome if it's your first time listening. We put a lot of time and effort into bringing you amazing guests and great content, all for free. Help us keep it that way. Let other people in your network know about us so we get more listeners. Share our posts on LinkedIn and Twitter. And also, please do rate the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you do listen. It really does help boost our visibility. So let's set up our next episode and then introduce to our guest. So we're talking to a very cool e-commerce retailer today and their agency partner, Asket, and we're talking about e-commerce technology stack evolution and a headless journey on Centra. We're going to cover things like why headless is the right approach, systems landscapes, selecting front ends, introducing PIM and new tech in a sensible way, and approaches to data management. So really interesting episode. So let's introduce our guest first. So first we've got Vidar for Asket. Vidar, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We met and listened to both of you recently at a Centra event in London, and we were really impressed by how well articulated the technology journey and vision was. Hence why we invited you to come on. So do you want to give people some people will know the brand, some people won't. Do you want to give people an introduction to who you are, what you do, and also what is Asket?
Sure. So my name is Vidar. I work as head of tech here at Asket. And Asket is a menswear and womenswear fashion retail brand selling direct to consumer, primarily via our e-commerce channel. And now we also do have 2 stores in Stockholm, Sweden. And our main sort of mission is to create timeless essentials and qualitative essentials that will withstand the test of time and reduce the sort of impact of fast fashion for a more sustainable future.
Amazing, thanks. Also, warm welcome, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm also very good, thanks. I'm also excited to be part of this podcast.
Yeah, we've timed it well because I know you're about to disappear off on a well-earned vacation in July. So thanks for taking the time to join us. Do you want to give people an introduction and maybe also help explain the relationship between your agency and Asket?
So my name is Jonathan and I'm a co-founder of a Swedish e-commerce agency called Made People. We've been around for, I think around 40 years, and we've been always highly focused on both tech and design UX within e-commerce. We've always been very tech heavy in our productions. And so we do primarily fashion and direct-to-consumer projects. So Asket is a very good fit for us. And Asket has also since the beginning been they've challenged us. Before Vidar was part of Asket, we were challenged by the 2 founders of Asket and their ideas, which had a very, very clear goal, but the road to that goal was kind of complex, which we thought was a very, very fun challenge. So we took this challenge and tried to make the best of it. And I guess that's also why we're here today and why we will probably talk a little bit more about Headless and, why that has been such an enablement, journey for Asket.
Great. And that takes me nicely on to the first question, which is for you, Jonathan. So you've worked on lots of Centra projects, probably one of the more experienced agencies. And I'd imagine you've worked with other platforms as well over the 14 years that you've been kind of servicing e-commerce brands. Why did you kind of choose Centra? Why do you like working with it? And why does it kind of fit your agency?
Yeah. So before Centra, before Headless, and before trying out many different platforms, we did a lot of Magento. And Magento was, they were the right choice for a long time because it was a feature complete monolith product. But we noticed that, new things were happening. Centra started to gain ground, and we realized that all the projects we did in Magento was essentially backend projects, and we want to focus more on, backend should be backend and frontend should be all about the experience and the end user, and for editors to be inspired when they work with their e-commerce. So we started to explore. We did a little bit of commerce tools, Shopify and Centra. And Centra just like fit really well because they spawned from the type of clients we work with. We've always done Scandinavian fashion who sell globally. And since Centra's platform is like constructed from the ground up for that purpose, it makes a lot of sense for us. Initially, me being a developer for 25 years, I wanted to have the ultimate, CTO dream. So we did try a few different other solutions, but there was too much tech and too little business value in the end for our type of client. We needed to do or build too many integrations from scratch. Common payment solutions, ERP integrations, and so on. Where Centra already had good partnerships with various vendors. So it made a lot of sense for us to try to focus on the purpose of an agency, which is to fill the gaps, like create the things that doesn't exist yet. And also the people over Centra, we kind of hit it off with them. We're the same type of people. So it made sense to created a great relationship, essentially.
That makes sense. James and I were on a train journey together on Monday. We were saying a similar thing about the people at Centra, couldn't they? Everyone seems quite similar. Very nice to work with. Makes a difference. And then Vidar, so moving on to you. So it sounds like you might not have been with Asket at the start, but why do you think it was that kind of they went down the route of Headless and kind of the way that you approached the kind of underlying architecture of the build?
Yeah, sure. So Asket as a company was founded in 2015, and we did the switch to Centra with Made People in 2019, and I joined the company just about that time. I think that one of the main drivers was essentially just being able to be ready to scale our business and to be able to scale our user experience. Asket is a lot about the product experience and enabling sort of a very rich content experience on our e-commerce, being an e-commerce driven brand. So to be able to sort of empower that vision and to reach that goal, I think that the combination of Storyblock and Centra being sort of our core systems together with Made People was a match made in heaven that really enables us to create product stories easily, and as Jonathan said, to make sure that the front end stays as a front end and acts as a more creative side of things, while still having a stable backend driven by the APIs of Centra to ensure stable order placement and such functions.
Attract, your complete product discovery growth engine. Create relevant shopping experiences that convert into sales and grow online revenue with personalized search, merchandising, and recommendation solutions powered by AI. Find out more at attract.com.
Question for you, Jonathan. So when we were at the Centra event, we were both impressed by the I'm going to use the word elegance of the overall technology stack. It seemed well thought through, not overly complicated, not packed full with lots of systems with complex integrations. It seemed quite clean and well structured. I'd love you to talk people through how did you get to the current setup in terms of what's sitting around Centra? Like, what was the decision process to decide what you needed in addition to Centra to satisfy the business requirements?
Very good question. I think for us, we've been a small agency for a long time. We're still a small one, but we were only like 4 or 5 people for 9 years. We're 30 now, so it's like still small, but a bigger agency. But what I mean by that is that we've always had kind of big clients with very specific requirements, and it's been extremely important for us to kind of reduce those requirements to the actual business value and then try to help guide our clients the right way, because you can, as an agency, take on many different new tasks and projects and not really question them. So I think that's been a way for us to kind of sandpaper our way through a neat or a lean stack. So the parts we have in there and how we have integrated them is really kind of just like to the point. We always try to think about the future as well, but we try our best not to introduce many unnecessary parts of it. And even though the Asket stack is maybe the most complicated one we have, I still think, and I agree with what you say, that it is kind of elegant, because like I really can't, like, there's nothing that feels unnecessary in there. And when it comes to how we build the integrations between the systems, is also, we try to build them in a way that we enable the various systems that we source together, and we do we always do this together. Like when we will probably talk more about the PIM, but the PIM project, we were very involved in that, trying to source the right one, both when it comes to making it fit greatly into a headless world, but also something that, with our knowledge of how Asket usually functions, and also how they function normally, like in the future after we've integrated something, those parts together. I just think it's about trying to boil everything down into what really matters and the real business value, and kind of take it from there.
And a question for you, Vidar. A lot of time when people talk about headless, a concern is, well, we've got to build out a really big internal team to make this work. We need loads of extra technology resource. I'd love to know, like, what does your technical setup look like in-house? Like, what roles you have in-house versus, obviously you've got Jonathan and the team that made people as well. And has that changed since you've gone headless?
Yeah, so from the start, it was mainly made people that was responsible for setting up the whole architecture, making sure that the systems are working, and getting us up to speed with how to actually work in our Storyblock CMS. So from the start, I would say that we were pretty heavily dependent on made people being the sort of technical owner. As time goes by, we have been taking more and more ownership, both in terms of technology side of things, where I have been taking some of the responsibilities when it comes to integrations, making sure that the different systems are working well. But I would say that the biggest area where we in-house sort of the tech responsibility is within the realm of data. So within the Asket project, we are working a lot with our different data flows, as well as our CDP, which is segment. So during 2020, we implemented segment into our stack, which is then our core platform for all of our tracking needs, as well as our integrations downstream towards ad platforms and different product sort of feeds and so on. And within segment and the CDP, we have internal roles such as a growth manager, a paid ad specialist, who then work within these platforms in-house. I think this is really key because this has enabled us to become much more data proficient. So we're able to work with our data in the raw form within Snowflake, our data warehouse, and also to funnel this data into a BI tool, which is Tableau that we're using today. And I can talk a lot about Tableau and how that has changed our sort of our way of doing analytics at Asket. And I think it's been proven to be really useful that we get ownership over our data and can work with it ourselves, whereas Made People supports us in this journey to become more data driven. But that we know and can work with the data ourselves.
That makes sense. We'll come on to that a bit more later on. So staying with you, Vidar. So as I mentioned when we met at the event, I think your content and kind of storytelling and the way that you structure some of the core templates on your site is really impressive. And I've been using it as an example for like 4 years. It's always been a real strength of the site and the brand. And obviously Centra doesn't have a front end, and you've kind of built out your own front end stack. You've mentioned Storyblock a couple of times, but can you talk us through that stack and kind of how you're managing all of that content?
Sure. So yes, as you mentioned, we're using Storyblock as our CMS, and this is then where we build all of our stories, all the different pages. And here, many people have been super, nifty in the way that we have created. Jonathan, we call it like market selectors or like product selectors, which essentially is just that we feed the different market-specific data and products from Centra and make them available to work with within Storyblock. So we can sort of view dynamic content from Centra into Storyblock, and then we can merchandise it or like drag and drop the different products and market information within Storyblock to then in the end view localized and sort of not personalized but market specific data within frontend. I think this sort of this feedback loop of information works really well, and it makes it easier for us to not have to do a lot of like rules and sort of hard-coded things within Storyblock, but that we instead can do sort of market-specific containers based on the markets that come from Centra automatically in Storyblock. It's a bit of a complex sort of explanation without any visualization, but yeah, I think Storyblock is just such a open and still powerful visual editor that we can do basically all different stories that we have today. And then I just want to add, so quite recently we then also pursued the PIM project, which I just want to mention that maintaining all of our product information, so we could previously do that within Storyblock, but we sort of realized that our ambition and the sheer volume of the different data points that we are measuring and displaying on our products did, after a couple of years, just became too much and didn't scale well with the amount of products that we're releasing and the products that we are maintaining over the years. Because we have a promise that we, as a brand, we want to present the full supply chain of all of our garments, which we call full traceability, showing everything from where the garment is spun, where the cotton comes from, and where the fabric is cut. So on. And I mean, in order to manage all of this information, we then realized that, we need an actual team to be able to structure and store this data, which is then where we chose Akinio to be our team vendor, which we did last year.
Hypersonics helps e-commerce companies make more profit every day. This AI-driven platform delivers recommendations for pricing and inventory that lead to bigger profits. Visit hypersonics.ai/podcast to get a free trial.
That makes sense, and we'll come on to that again later on, a bit more on kind of how you built that out and implemented it. Jonathan, can you talk us through a bit more on kind of why Storyblock, I think, we've heard a lot about and I've been impressed with in the past, and, that can be part of it, but can you just talk us through kind of how you built out that front end stack, why you made the decisions on the different vendors, and how you kind of governed and, remained performant at the same time?
Yeah. So, I think it definitely comes down to being strict about high impact requirements. For instance, we did benchmark a few different headless CMSs. Storyblock having the visual editor wasn't actually a requirement, but it quickly became one because it's so nice, right? But another requirement we had was that it should be easy to like Vidar was talking about, to get data from external databases and sources and vendors into Storyblok to build content that relates to stuff outside of the CMS, like products, markets, newsletter subscription lists, segments, A/B test variations, all of these different things. And with the Storyblok, it was very easy to do that. So with other CMSs, it was more a matter of syncing. And when you sync, you kind of cut a bit of creativity from the editorial part, because you want stuff to be direct, especially if you make a change in a separate system like an ecom platform, and you add a bunch of categories, and you want to like instantly build content using those categories in the CMS. You don't want to wait half an hour and then build them. It kind of chops it up and makes your ecom organization. You feed these separate silos, even if that's not what you want, just because of how the stack is built. So we wanted to have direct feedback in the CMS, because that's where you do the majority of the work, or the work that relates directly to the consumer. So that was important. And then when it comes to making things perform, we found that the only way for us to create a stack that performs with an average high performance is to mirror all the data. To mirror all the data and then query our cache of that data. So separately mirror the Centra data and mirror the Storyblok data, and then build that out to pages. Because then we can own URLs, and then we can have fast dynamic data without having long rendering times of the static approach, where you render something. Essentially, static generation is just cache. So it's just pre-generated cache that takes a long time to render. If you have the global first setup where you need to sell to the entire world on different languages, prices, campaigns, and whatever. So we mirror the data, and this was just like how we built it then. So it's like a 15-minute just mirror. So there are no direct calls to Centra, for instance, except when there's cart and order flows. So that we can have something that performs, so we can create very rich content that update quickly, which is what our clients want. So it was mostly about that. I think you can, as long as you have that approach, you make it easy for clients to understand, because you have a context. It's easy to get the context of what something is when the updates are more or less instant. That, and then when it comes to the front end tech, we're trying to create a dynamic static experience. And then you need, I don't think it matters so much what front end tool you use. We used to do Vue and Nux, never really liked that. Now we're doing React and Remix, and that's better. So, we can still achieve the same thing. That's more like a matter of preference and taste.
And you were still quite passionate about the avoiding constant syncing between systems at the event. And you've mentioned it again today, and you talked about data mirroring. For those who don't really get that or haven't done that, could you give me more clarification? Like, what is data mirroring, and how do you handle it? Like, what tools are you using to get these data mirrors set up so that you reduce the number of times you have to do like live querying?
Yeah, mirroring, it is a sync. What I mean is I think that the data should be where the front end lives, which is essentially where the agency does its work. I don't believe in, and this is also the way that we built the PIM integration. If you build a PIM integration, then you can say, okay, let us sync all of the data into the ecom platform, because that's the one we query for products. Like you could have that approach, but it creates a lot of limitations for how you work inside the PIM. For instance, Asket would need to let us know every time they add a new attribute, make a change in an attribute, because we would need to write code to get that into the platform and make sure that it ends up there correctly. Maybe the ecom platform doesn't even support the structure that the PIM uses. Maybe we need to cut corners and make something that's really good in the PIM world not as good just because we have to put it into a separate platform. But if we mirror everything as is into where we live in the front end or the back end for front end, that is easy for us to just like when we pull in the data, we can do whatever we want with it, because now we are in the business logic world of Asket. We're just in the business logic world of Centra or of Storyblock. So that we can work much, much more freely and act quicker, and also we don't have to say no to Asket as much, or plan sprints of attributes stuff. So yeah, that's more what it's about. I don't know if that was clear, if it's like still too complex.
Yeah, no, that's understood. Thank you. And Vidar, I like the explanation you gave at the event around the process of introducing Akeneo to minimize how much effort from an integration point of view. So I've got a couple of questions. That is, how did you approach putting the PIM in once you made the decision? And what made Akeneo the right fit? While were there specific capabilities, because there's a lot of PIMs in the market. Akeneo is clearly a market leader, but also it does have a higher license fee than some alternatives. So I'd love to hear that, how you went about putting it in, and then what drew you to Akeneo.
Sure. So I think there were a couple of drivers for that choice. One obvious one being that we're looking for a sort of a software as a service, not an on-premise solution, which they fully support. And also technical point, which is that they both have sort of a standard static, very good API for just fetching their products and entities. But also they have an event-driven API where we can then consume events on changes. Speaking about these syncs, as Jonathan mentioned, we also like when the information is being up to date, and we're really striving to not having to wait, for hourly cron jobs or daily cron jobs. So we're then utilizing the event-driven approach where updates trigger events and then syncs towards this context that Jonathan mentioned. So the technical capabilities of Akeneo are very strong, but then also when it comes down to it, it's a lot also about the actual interface, which our end users at Asket are working with. So it's the product team, the marketing team, the operations team. They all have to enrich different products in different ways. And we, after testing the different vendors out, we felt that Akeneo has a very strong approach and UI when it comes to storing drafts of changes and then sending these drafts to an approver for a stage gate process. And this works really well in our workflow internally, where we are constantly changing information, but we want to make sure that these changes are revised, double checked, and don't have any misunderstandings or misalignments. This just fits really well into our sort of perfectionistic data and product approach.
Great. And I guess just continuing on with some of that, across the business, what are some of the improvements you've seen from a process and data quality perspective as a result of implementing Akeneo?
Yeah, I think ensuring sort of, as I mentioned, the data quality on our product pages has been a challenge previously. And that can, examples of that can just be that ensuring that the meta titles are of a certain length, or that the color or the different sort of very structural attributes are given on a specific format and stuff like that. So I think those were some quick wins that we could get once the PIM was integrated, just ensuring the quality of the data. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, and just as an add-on to that, the move from Storybook to PIM, we went with Storybook in the beginning to just work extremely freely with any type of data added to the products. But the CMS being like so free, ultimately you want data to be strict. So that was like. So that was why moving to a PIM was a very good thing to do.
Yeah, I think in a way, like starting out using the CMS approach and in this very free landscape, it was really good for our creativity and to sort of just envision the full story of what story we wanted to tell to our customers. But then, looking at how we then could manage this in higher volume and at a higher scale, then the PIM became the sort of appropriate solution for us. But going from Storybook still, I think was a good area to be in, because we were, we could become very creative, and there was no idea that was, never have I heard from many people that, this is not possible when it comes to what information we show on our product pages, which is great.
That makes sense. We had another guest on maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, Tim from the Bottle Club, and he's relatively recently implemented Akinyo. Talking about like the real benefit they've seen is one, like the reporting side, so that understanding the quality of their data, and then as Jonathan kind of alluded to, some of the validation and approval stuff as well. But yeah, it's made a big difference to them as well. So Vidar, you mentioned a little bit earlier about Tableau and kind of the combination of Tableau and Segment as part of your kind of reporting stack. Can you just kind of talk us through, particularly Tableau, kind of how you're using that as kind of like it sounds like a master for kind of business reporting, like some of the sources of data you're pulling in, and how the business is kind of benefiting from it?
Yeah, sure. So, starting off, I would just like to say that, at Asket, we obviously do all of the conventional, analytics and conventional reporting, looking at the sales data and so on. But we're also working a lot with really trying to optimize the whole balance sheet in our organization. So looking also at the returns that are coming in, and trying to really find different ways to optimize return rates, increase customer satisfaction, and so on. So when we were looking at adding on a whole analytics and data platform, we wanted to build something that not just supported those conventional reports, but where we had the freedom to create whichever data-driven reports that we wanted. And the solution to that is to essentially just create a data warehouse first, which where we're using Snowflake just to store different types of data. And within Snowflake, our data warehouse, we simply just add on, or we've done all of our different data sources. So it's both, all of our sales from Centra that we're dumping in on an event-driven basis. And also, as I mentioned previously, from our CDP segment, where all of our user interactions are being recorded, as well as our product data and stock data over time. All of this being fed into the data warehouse creates an opportunity for us to do sort of joins between tables that were not previously thought about. So we can do quite complex and interesting cross-system analysis. And all of that is happening within Tableau. So we're then reading the data into Tableau, where I then create sort of a data model, feeding the data, and then make this data available to the whole organization where they are free to slice and dice and join sales data with stock availability data. Some very insightful things.
And also, just a thing to mention on the on the data stuff, we also have this anonymized user ID that we control, so that we can kind of connect user journeys depending on where they have been, which I think is a very cool thing also in the entire data world.
Yeah, because previously, the user email has been the sort of unique key, unique value that we can try and join the different data sets on. But emails change over time, and customers sometimes don't always provide an email. So having this anonymous user ID approach enables us to not only unify a customer across several emails, but also to actually stitch anonymous data from different platforms together. That was not previously possible since we didn't have the email. So yeah, there are some really cool wins, and all of those wins are in effect from the segment CDP. So it's a really cool product. It's enabled us to really unify all of our different data sources.
Yeah, that flows on nicely, because I wanted to ask you about segment, because it's a powerful CDP. It's got lots of functionality. What are you focused on using? Like which parts of the business are using it the most, and for what reasons?
I think the primary usage was for our paid ads, to be able to scale and integrate different ads platforms without having made people. They can simply build one integration towards segment, so tracking all of our different events such as order complete, order returned, product clicked, product viewed, and so on. And then once they have integrated segment then takes care of the integration with Meta, with Google Ads, with Bing, and so on, without having made people and developers to create and write additional tracking calls. I think that is a huge win, both for the scalability of our technical platform, to make sure that the code is not bloated with a lot of various tracking calls and having to maintain them. So just it acts as an integrator or sort of hub for all of our integrations when it comes to events. But I would say that in recent years we've been discovering the whole personas product within segment, which is essentially, now that we have all of this nice data, we then aggregate the different metrics. So we create more sophisticated CLV predictions and calculations, as well as, trying to understand what are the most sought after and looked for items for a specific customer segment. Then we create these audiences, which is essentially a collection of customers. We can then push those to our CRM, for example, for further activation. So this is essentially just being smarter with the way we're working with our data, which I think during times like economic recession or downturn, is sort of a more profitable and cheaper way of driving valuable and good communication that doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money from ad platforms.
Yeah, nice example of how to use it. Thanks. And I've got a final question for you, Jonathan, because you said it earlier on about Centra and being a good fit, not just from a technology, but also, I guess, business culture and outlook. I'd love to know what most excites you about Centra and where it's headed with its product strategy and what's coming up in the roadmap?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how much I can say about it. Like, we recently had a meeting with them about these things, and what I feel like is they are expanding like ways for developers to work with the more internal parts of Centra, kind of to extend it in ways that were previously closed, modifying. I don't know how much I can say, like I said, but for me as a developer, gaining even more possibilities as an opt-in. Not like I don't need to do the extra things, but more options are available. And it feels like what they are moving on with is really features and enhancements that I sometimes get asked about from our clients. So them being more of they are a fashion DTC backlog-driven product essentially, and I think that really shows. Obviously, they need to balance out the maintenance part of having a healthy platform, but the parts they have coming up, I think, really makes sense. It was actually a lot of fun to see their most recent roadmap and see what they have planned.
That was a suitably diplomatic answer without giving too much away.
Super diplomatic. Yeah, I know.
It's interesting. Me and Paul have talked about this a lot. We're seeing the interest in Centra is rising in the UK because obviously it's got a very strong heritage in Scandinavia, but the ecosystem's not as mature in the UK. But there's definitely more interest. So I'm intrigued to see where they go next too. The international multi-channel stuff's definitely interesting. Well, look, thanks. That's been really interesting. I've really enjoyed you being able to share with our listeners, having listened to your story at that event around tech selection, especially around like Storyblock, Akenio, Segment, etc. So really interesting. Hopefully, people have got some good insights to take away from this. So appreciate you taking the time, gents, to come on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And also, thanks everyone who listened. As always, we hope you enjoyed it too. Do keep an ear open for our next episode. We drop one every Tuesday. And don't forget to give us that rating on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you might be listening or watching the video. Take care, everybody. Until next time. For more information on this topic, head over to replatform.fm for our audio podcasts. To discuss a project, or if you'd like to chat about any of the topics covered in this episode in more detail, please reach out to myself, James Gerd, or my co-host Paul Rogers via LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and keep your ears peeled for the next episode.